Well, welcome everybody. This is understanding and managing Microsoft 365 Copilot agents. I'm going to hand it off Taylor. Taylor's going to do a bit of introductions for us, and then we'll get the webinar kicked off. Taylor, welcome.
Thanks everyone for being here. We appreciate you taking the time to learn more about Copilot agents. So by way of introduction, my name is Taylor Kirkland. I'm a modern work specialist here servicing our providers and our payvider customers in Chicago, supporting all of our Midwest customers. This is a follow-up from our last webinar session where we did a Copilot chat overview. So hopefully you were able to attend that. If not, we can drop a link in the chat. There's a YouTube link. But basically, we heard from a lot of you that you were craving to learn more about Copilot agents. So that's the intention of this session. I have with me my other colleagues. We've got Chuck Lucott, who is our global black belt specialist specializing in Copilot, and Nick Stillings, who is a Copilot usage architect. So you've got the gang here today. We will go through a couple of slides just to ground you in your understanding of agents, understand what's available out of the box today. I think agents present a lot of excitement around automating business processes, and specifically in the healthcare environment, that means reducing some admin work and allowing professionals to focus more on patient care, which is ultimately going to improve patient outcomes, which is why we all wake up and do what we do every day to support those who are supporting the patients. So once we have a good understanding of what the agents are, we'll get into the good stuff. We will showcase how to build agents, how to administer them, some of the reporting capabilities. This is your time, so please interact and ask questions. You have the four of us here to help. And of course, if you want to do a deeper dive about specific use cases for your organization, reach out to your account team afterwards to set that up. I always like to, just say before we kick things off, the webinar will be a success if you leave with a foundational understanding of Copilot agents and you have an idea or two that could be beneficial for some of your workflows at your organization. The best ideas always come from the problems that you're trying to solve. So I hope this spurs a lot of ideas and look forward to hearing what you all come up with. So with that, I will hand it over to Michael to get us started.
Yeah, thanks, Taylor. So I'm really excited. This is number 2. I think we're going to try to make this a recurring monthly thing. So stay tuned on that one. But today there's gonna be a little bit of slideware. So and the purpose of this of some of that presentation material is just kind of help you understand what agents are. And then we're actually going to spend a lot of time demoing agents to kind of spark some creativity. I think one of the challenges I've seen customers have is just like, how do I use agents? Like what are some of the things that we can use them for and so forth? So Nick's here. He's going to demo some of the stuff that he's made to just kind of spark some creativity as well. I'm going to show you some of the stuff that Microsoft's made out of the box to kind of get you a foundation there. And then after some of those demos, then we're going to get into the management side of things. So I'm going to push some buttons, hands-on keys inside of some of the admin centers to show you where we manage some of this stuff. So sound good? Thumbs up. Wait for the thumbs up.
Yes.
Oh, I have my Mac OS effects on. I forgot about that. So
you're
happy
showing off.
I'm happy as well. But all right. So Copilot is a UI for AI. Why I'm kind of showing this here is an important thing. So the way that we view agents is when we say Copilot is UI for AI is when you go to Copilot and anywhere on the web in the Windows desktop app and any of the M365 apps, we interact directly with Copilot, that large language model. But then when we bring agents in there, it opens up a lot of things that we can do around business processes, automations, and workflow. So when I say Copilot is UI for AI, really view Copilot as kind of like your iPhone or your Android device. It's the device that allows you to interact with all of your apps. And then agents are more like your application. So this is what we're talking about here. We're really targeting the agent side of that as well. And those applications on that iPhone or Android device do a lot of different things. Some of it just allow you to watch the news, so retrieve some of that important information. Some things like Outlook automatically do things on your behalf where they pull email for you and give you a notification. So that's what agents really are or those applications that are working inside of that iPhone. So that's a kind of one of the examples I use a lot to kind of help organizations understand where agents are, where their agents are meant to be able to help us build, target certain business processes, workflows, and build things around them to automate those things. And so today everything that we're going to talk about will work within Copilot Chat. So we talked about Copilot Chat last month, that kind of free service that allows all of our organizations to use AI, be able to have a standardized AI within the workplace. So we're not dealing with things like shadow IT and so forth. So all of our agents will work within Copilot Chat, as well as that full Copilot license as well. So I think that's important as we kind of set the stage here that it's going to work across the Microsoft ecosystem. All right, so let's get into what Copilot agents are. So there's two key concepts, kind of like I said before, is Copilot is just a kind of generalist. It's your AI assistant at work. It's when we need to use AI, we go to Copilot and we can interact with it, ask questions, both from the website as well as from some of the work side. But Copilot is that assistant. It's grounded in work, so it has that information to help you be productive and find information that is around your organization, and it's that UI for AI. Agents, on the other hand, are work within Copilot, but they're really there to target specific business processes and workflows. So when I talk to customers and they're trying to figure out agents, the first thing that I usually ask them is, what's a business process that you want to automate? And think about that. And I think probably some of the common things that we first kind of brainstorm is, I would love to have like a employee self-service or like a policy and benefits agents, where maybe I've got new employees, they're coming in, and we've got all of our benefits and policies in multiple SharePoint services. Maybe they're also tucked away in a ServiceNow instance or some other third-party instance. Agents allow us to take all of those different connectors and all of those different knowledge bases, put them in a single location to allow users to be able to search that really easy, leveraging natural language and leveraging the power of Copilot. So that's what agents are. They're part of Copilot, but they allow us to really build a very centered or focused knowledge business process and kind of build around that. So when we look at agents, there's a variety of different agents that we can build. So the probably the most popular one that most of us are probably used to, from the consumer side, whether you're using a ChatGPT, a Gemini, a Perplexity, whatever, or a Copilot, we're very used to just asking that large language model something and getting it back. That's a very common way that we do that. And we can build agents that are just retrieval agents. We can build them with certain knowledge bases that are, this is Polly, our policy agent, or this is our onboarding agent that helps employees onboard and has a very specific knowledge base focused in certain things. And as well as we can start doing task-based agents. These are where they're actually going to do something for us. We're interacting with them, and we're also telling them to go and do something as well. It's like Lycos, go get it or something. I don't know why I came up with that one. That's like from my childhood, but and then you've got
we do Yahoo Answers next.
Yeah, Yahoo Answers. I don't even know where Lycos came out. My brain just like put it there. And then you've got autonomous agents. Autonomous agents are agents that just do something for us. We don't have to do anything. And a really good example is one of the things that I'm working on. I haven't fully got it complete yet. There's a couple bugs, but I created an autonomous agent that I took for an example, let's see, I've got a group that monitors a shared inbox, and in that shared inbox, customers will send us emails on certain product information or maybe licensing questions. I've got a Copilot autonomous agent that goes and reads that inbox and then automatically replies to that. So in its knowledge base of that autonomous agent, I've got it focused on a whole bunch of Microsoft public URLs that have all of the information around the product and the licensing. So that's its knowledge base. And so it goes and reads that email, automatically replies to it, and just puts it in my inbox for me to, it doesn't send it to the customer, but puts it in my inbox to read. And then I can choose to just send that to the customer if I want. So that's an example of autonomous agent I was personally working on that kind of helps, a team be able to reply quickly to a customer and having the AI do a lot of that legwork. But there's a large spectrum of ways that we can do agents. And Chuck or Nick, I would love to get your kind of pin some of your perspective on that. What are some things that you've seen from our customers or in your own personal experience using different agents of this realm?
Yeah, you bet. One of the biggest ones that I've kind of seen over the last 18 months is people are building out this skill set of working with large language models, querying AI, not just in Copilot, but in many other tools. And there's some soft skills that go along with this, being explicit in your instructions, telling it how you want the results to come back or what sources to use. And we showed in the previous session that you can build a really good prompt using these principles and save it and reuse it. But an agent allows me to essentially package all that up into a virtual assistant, an automaton of myself, and make that available to other people. So I can take my implicit knowledge of what to use, how to phrase it, what to stay away from, how to present it, and then give it to someone else to leverage. So I make it a more explicit for the organization. It's a way to capture some of that knowledge and soft skills that we all have and promote it. And so I've seen a lot of organizations, when people think about agents, I think we tend to like sprint to like, okay, I'm going to automate, everything I'm doing in the day. Not always. Crawl, walk, run. An easy way is just to take some of the best practices that you have and package them up so other people can access them easier. And I'll show you some examples when I get an agent builder and doing it.
Yeah, thanks.
Chuck, does that replicate? Yeah, you bet. Great question. Does that reflect what you see too?
It definitely does, Nick. I think taking one step back and kind of my view of my customers with agents, it is a new muscle, right? And everything you said makes total sense. But step back once, and you're going to say, well, what should I be building for agents? There's so many opportunities there, right? So one of the guidances we give our customers is to look at low complexity, high impact agents as a good place to start, because you don't want to boil the ocean right away, right? With every potential agent you could do. So that's really all I would have to add to that, Michael.
Yeah, thanks, Nuck. Chuck, thanks. I put both your names together there. Nuck and Nuck. So thanks, Nick. Thanks, Chuck. You actually guys sparked something interesting in me. So when I was first joined Microsoft, it was 3 months in, I remember hearing a very interesting a way of doing an agent. So there was a team member, and he was recently promoted. And everyone kept asking him questions on how to do his old job. And so what he ended up doing, he created a SharePoint and then wrote down all of the things, wrote down everything that he did in his previous role and so forth, made a knowledge base out of that, and then created an agent. And, as people came in, it's like, here's how I do it. But in the future, talk to this agent. It's me. It's everything that I did in my old job. So I thought that was a fun way to kind of approach agents. But you guys kind of, when you guys are both talking, like, oh, I remember this. This is a really fun way to kind of approach agents and so forth. So awesome. So how to think I was trying to think of how do you actually think of agents? And this is I actually heard this from somewhere else. I heard this on LinkedIn somewhere, and I'm like, that's a really good way of thinking it. So when I think about agents, like Copilot versus agents, Copilot is your generalist. It's that assistant grounded in work and web that allows you to be productive in a lot of different ways. Agents are your specialists. They are very refined SMEs that are built in very specific knowledge bases. So that's when I saw that, I'm like, that is a really good way of thinking of that. So that's kind of how I always kind of think when I think about agents versus Copilot. They work together. Agents are built within Copilot, so they're connected to Copilot, and Copilot is that general UI for your agents. So when you're thinking about agents, I felt that was a really good way to kind of approach that. And the second side of that is, okay, cool. Now, how do I create those agents? We'll show you some of the tools, and Nick's going to go through some of the building tools. But when we think about agents, there's a couple different ways that we build them. So Agent Builder is one of those. So Agent Builder is when you go to Copilot on the web, within any of the M365 applications, there's a little button on the top right that says create an agent, or it might say build an agent. I think it says create an agent. So your users can go over there and hit create agent, and they can start building their own agent. That is considered an AI agent builder. Where I view kind of those agents are when we're wanting to build something personal to that user, or maybe a agent that's built for a specific team, maybe an ER department or certain clinician business unit and so forth, where it's built with a very specific specific business process, but anyone can make those. So anyone on the team can make those and then make them available to those other team members. That is an agent that can be blocked or approved. So we'll show you where that is. And then you also have Copilot Studio. You probably hear Studio quite often. Copilot Studio is a next level up for an agent builder. So this is where we can build agents, but also maintain control and scale those agents throughout the organization. So AI Agent Builder, we can share with individuals via a link. Copilot Studio allows us to publish those agents and make them available at an organization level, as well as it gives us more advanced tools for porting in connectors and actions. So all of our Power Platform tools and so forth, we can put in there. So if I want to build an agent that's grounded in a ServiceNow connector to be able to pull knowledge bases, or maybe write to ServiceNow, or we got a Jira connector or any type of connector, that's where Copilot Studio allows us to really build that. And then you've got the last piece, Azure AI. So Azure AI is where we can start building out agents with multiple different tools, different LLMs. So if we want to use Copilot plus a third-party LLM, that's where we can start building things within Azure AI and so forth. But Chuck, I would love to get your perspective on some of the things you've seen within these different tools. Or Nick, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone starts on the far left, right? With Agent Builder, it's simple, it's easy. And it says for makers under Copilot Studio, like I'm personally a builder. I love building things. But you can, the Copilot Studio really is that middle ground, right? And you can go no code all the way to, code in that Copilot Studio going to the far right. So if you're not like a development focused person, you're probably going to live in Agent Builder and Copilot Studio, very easy to use. Most of my customers, start left, end up in the middle right now is what I'm seeing.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not a developer at all, but I actually feel real comfortable in Copilot Studio. I've built quite a few agents in there. Started messing with some advanced stuff when it comes to Power Platforms and flows and stuff like that. Still a little above me, but it's definitely a tool that can be used for those low code people. Nick, what are your thoughts?
Same. I'm going to go back to what I said earlier, crawl, walk, run. Kind of these easy entry points are what we refer to as Agent Builder in Copilot Chat or SharePoint. So we'll take a peek at each one of those. And when I get to my session, I'll drop in a couple of resources I found useful to kind of steer users to getting started if you're standing up a community of excellence or community of practice for this agent building. It's kind of nice to have a place for what I think of as like the citizen developer, the power user to go to for these Agent Builder agents, but then still have an escalation path for my developer community to use the more advanced capabilities.
Awesome. I like it. So that's a little bit about what agents are. I'm going to, before I go into we're going to kind of start look at what agents can be. So we're going to look at some out of the box agents that Microsoft has built for our customers. And then we're going to dive into some of the stuff that Nick's got. Before I do that, any questions from the audience in the Q&A? Okay, cool.
Yeah, right, nothing in chat either. Yeah.
All right, so some of the out-of-box agents, so these are kind of just to kind of spark some creativity here. So we've got the facilitator, we've got interpreter, we've got some employee self-service. So I'm going to dive into each of these different agents. So the facilitator agent, well, it doesn't look like a typical agent that you would go to Copilot and select. This is an agent that is part of Teams. The facilitator agent is a really cool agent that I found super useful. It automatically takes notes as the team goes on. It also works in chat. So if you have really large group chats or just a one-on-one chat and you start chatting, it actually takes notes of that chat and allows you to see some of those action items. It's different than the AI notes that we get after the meeting. So if you've got a Teams premium license or a Copilot license, you get after a Teams meeting, you get all of the kind of notes, the AI notes there. It's a little different than that because this is in real time. So as the meeting goes on, it takes those notes. It's really cool. Like it's like, hey, we're halfway through the meeting. This is what I've got so far, and it'll tell you when 5 minutes are up and stuff like that. But it's a really cool agent to kind of help us kind of keep track in meetings and chats and so forth. I find it useful because I just got back from PTO on Monday, so I was able to go in a couple of different chats, large chats that our teams have, and be able to see what I missed. So I found that super helpful. Interpreter is a cool one. So this allows us to be able to use an agent that automatically puts real-time speech. So changes that language. So if you got multiple people that are talking in different languages and so forth, we can use Interpreter to be able to read that live during the meeting. Employee self-service, another super cool one. This allows us to create that kind of self-service for employees, but the power of this one is where we can add all the different connectors. So this is if we have new people that are onboarding, or maybe you're tenured and you're trying to, and you forgot what the link is to go to do my re-elections for benefits, before it closes. This is a really cool one because we can build its knowledge base with a variety of different connectors. You got Fidelity, Workday, ServiceNow. So anything that's kind of in that Power Platform is part of that. So and this I found it really cool where we can just build out that agent with a variety of different resources and knowledge bases to help our employees be productive and be that resource of I don't know where I put that bookmark, but Copilot's got it. And then also agents and SharePoints. Well, I don't think we're going to tackle agents and SharePoints a lot today. There's actually one of my peers yesterday did a webinar that I'll try to link in here on agents and SharePoint. But this is a really cool one. So there's SharePoint can get really, really vast. Like you can have SharePoint pages that have lots and lots of information. Sometimes it can be very challenging to figure out where that information is. And let's be honest, Microsoft Search, it's good to a point, but I find using Copilot to find stuff in SharePoint a lot better. It's just better at finding things. And this is where we can build SharePoint agents. Those SharePoint admins and owners can approve certain SharePoint agents for that to be able to allow users to interact with an agent to figure out what information is on that SharePoint, find information on that SharePoint. So a really cool way to be able to use Copilot directly within SharePoint. And really cool thing is we can take that SharePoint agent and also interact with it in a chat, which is super cool. And then also we've got user created agents. So this is where Nick's really going to show us a lot of different things. But this is where users can create those in Agent Builder within Copilot, really based on certain business processes, business needs that they have that themselves, or maybe their team needs or the organization needs. So with that said, Nick, I'm going to hand it off to you to kind of show us a little bit about these agents and how you build them.
Okay, great, thanks. I'm going to go ahead and share out my screen. Can you just confirm that you see it? And my big yellow mouse moving around in the middle. Great, awesome.
I see it.
Yeah, so thanks, great intro. Let me give you just a little context. I'm going to go use that analogy I used earlier, and I'm going to bring up a slide from last month's webinar where we very briefly talked about kind of the art and science of prompting. And if you recall, and I mentioned this earlier, that when we're working with these large language models, I want to have a couple of elements that I always include in my prompts that let the tool know, hey, this is what I'm trying to do, why I'm doing it, what I want to get out of it, how I'd like the information presented, and where I'd like you to go and look up that information. So one of the ways that I think about agents in that example I gave earlier of taking my implicit knowledge and making it explicit is I have that kind of list of best practices for a prompt or something I'm doing in the large language model. And I keep saying LLM to just remind you that, well, everything is best experience with Copilot, right? Oh, it's just the best thing out there. There are other tools out there as well, too. So if I have a doctor who's used to using this agent or used to using a large language model to reason over healthcare information, this skill set still applies. With an agent, then, I take these things, the goal, context, source, expectations. It's not quite one-to-one, but I'm taking some of those best practices and instructions and sort of soft skills I built into the prompt and the hard references like what sources to use, and I'm explicitly declaring those inside the agent. In fact, you'll hear us use that term, declarative agents. That's what that means. I'm declaring how I want you to run. If you're a fan of The Office, I didn't say it, I declared it. And so this is what I'm going to do is I'm going to hop out into Agent Builder and put these together. Every now and then you'll hear Microsoft say something about custom engine agents. And what we mean there is you're using a large language model other than the one that Copilot uses, which is a version of ChatGPT hosted in Microsoft Azure. But all of these things show up inside of Copilot in chat, and so it's very accessible to the user. So as Michael mentioned, there's kind of a continuum of tools. I'll take a look at a couple of the things here on the left-hand side, which I think there's sort of more of that citizen developer power user. Michael's going to show us a couple of things in Copilot Studio. We'll briefly mention there are other things available. So for my Azure-based developers, there's a whole collection, a whole toolkit that hits against the Azure Cognitive Services and Azure things like Azure Bot Services and the agent tools that are there as well too. So I find when I'm working with the developer, they kind of turn their nose up a little bit when I show them, something like the SharePoint agent, and they're like, oh, I can do so much more than that. And I'm like, yes, but there's only one of you. There's hundreds of SharePoint users in our organization. Let's pick the ones that own the sites and have our small community of power users. We'll have them kind of build these things out a little bit. Okay, so let me hop out and jump out to just a couple of references. So I'm going to start first as just stepping through creating my first agent. And I want to show you the help page I'm going to follow as I go along. So I'll drop this link into chat here in a second. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the agent builder, which I'll do inside of Copilot. Then I'm going to give it some instructions and how I want it to work. And then I'm going to test it as I go. So the nice thing is, as you're building these things, it kind of ingests your instructions and guidance on the fly so you can try it out and just see how it works as you go. So let me grab this. I'm going to just drop this into our meeting chat really quick. I'm breaking a speaker rule by giving you the handout while I'm talking, but feel free to, I'll probably go a little too fast to follow along. I don't know if I've drunk quite as much coffee as Michael has this morning, but I'm pretty darn close. So let's see this first. So I'm going to jump out to Copilot. And I always like to tell my users, this is where you find it. You can go in the browser to Microsoft365.com/chat, or here up into Teams, into Copilot. If I'm ever doing a training or a demo session, I like to pop it out also into its own window, just so it's like a little less to look at for end users as we're walking them through it. And then I also like to dock it on a second monitor often when I'm working. So here I can do Copilot things, talking with it and getting responses back. To create an agent, it's a little hidden. It's this little button all the way up here at the top. If I pop that out, so that shows me my chat history down here toward the bottom. And you can see I've been playing with this prior to the webinar. I went in and created a couple and played with a few. This is where my agents show up. So I'm going to start with a new one, and then we'll look at a couple of these built-in ones that Michael referenced, and I'll make a couple of more. So I want to create an agent. And in this case, I'm going to build one out that can be used by anyone with a Microsoft 365 license, regardless of whether or not they have a Copilot license. Now, again, the Copilot license is going to give me the best experience. I'll be able to reason over all of my information, my work data in Microsoft Graph. But I also don't want people to use Shadow IT and other unsupported large language or tools, AI tools that are out there. So one of the options Microsoft makes is you can just use web-based grounding and use Copilot just to work with information that's generally available on the internet or in the language model itself. And you can even build agents based on that as well too. So let me show you my scenario. I've got a group here that I've just formed a community in my company of Scrum Masters. So I've got a new cohort of users that have just learned the Agile methodology, and they're beginning to work with it for the first time. And they've started to ask me questions, just to Michael's example earlier, and I can't be available all the time to answer those. And often they're asking questions that are kind of easily available if they knew how to Bing or Google. So I'm going to build an agent to help them get a little bit started. I'm going to click here on the right where it says Create Agent. And let's make our window bigger now so we can see it. And this is what we call Agent Builder. Now, I think it's a tiny bit confusing in one area. It's actually powered by the full Copilot Studio tool underneath it. So the correct term here is Agent Builder powered by Copilot Studio. But I always just say Agent Builder to refer to this lightweight version here inside of Copilot Chat. In a little bit, Michael will show us the deeper version, which I get to by going to Copilot Studio, if I can spell it right, .microsoft.com. And you'll see when this renders, it's going to have more UI elements in it. I'll jiggle the mouse to make the page load a little bit faster. Come on, Copilot Studio. And I'll come back to this if it doesn't render in a couple more seconds. But this is going to give me a lot more controls and customization that I can use. I think
jiggling's going to work there.
No, it's not. Usually, that's a good joke. There it goes. Hey, all right. Okay, yeah. So now if I go in here to create an agent, there's you'll see the layout's kind of different, but it gives me a lot more configuration control. So we'll come back to this in a second. I just kind of start basic, but I wanted to call that out as you're talking with your peers. Make sure you're differentiating between Agent Builder and the full Copilot Studio experience. It'll just save you some clarification questions on a couple of Teams meetings going forward. Okay, so I went into Agent Builder. I said, let's create a new agent. And this is what it brings me to kind of start with. We have a couple of template agents. So some of those that are kind of available out of the box from Microsoft, they're already available and sort of pre-configured. So I'll come back to these in a little bit. They'll kind of pre-populate the information I'm about to drop in So if you're just doing this for the very first time, click on one of these, you'll get a sense of kind of how we put it together. So you can see, okay, there's like instructions, there's starter prompts. It's just kind of a nice way to kind of just get started really quick if you're just not sure, if you find that kind of blank canvas a little scary to begin with. But I'm gonna start from scratch, and I wanna build an agent for my Scrum Agile people. So I want to create an agent for new Scrum Masters who are a little hesitant with their first sprints. All right, let's kind of use that just enough to get started. Now, I can skip this step, but I'm actually using Copilot to help me build the agent. So as I'm describing things, it's going to now go and reason over, okay, what does he probably mean by that? It'll go ahead and pre-populate some starter questions for me. And it's going to ask me some additional qualifying questions. So how do you think of this as a name? Let's not call it Scrum Master Assistant. That might be confusing. Let's call it Scrum Assistant. So I can kind of iterate back and forth here a little bit. Great.
I want to point something out.
Yeah, thank you.
Real quick, you actually misspelled sprints in your prompt, but the LLM is actually smart enough to kind of figure out what you mean. So I thought that was.
Yes, it knows not serpents, even though I'm a Harry Potter fan, but sprints. So I figured out the context from that as well too, ignoring my other context from the rest of my work data. Okay, yeah, great. Scrum, thanks. Good, and please keep doing that too as I'm going. I'm probably missing something or nervous as I hit it. Let's see. Let's refine the instructions. So what should it do? So to cheat a little bit, I've gone ahead and just kind of pre-typed up some of my instructions that I want to use here, just so you don't have to watch me type and fumble through that. So I'm going to go ahead and just give it some general guidelines and skills. Let's give it, I'm going to tell it kind of how I want it to work. So I'm just going to say, you're an AI agent, kind of facilitating Scrum motions, backlog management, and continuous improvement. Now this is not my final answer. So as it's reasoning over, like for example, it said, would you like to provide tips? And I'm like, oh, that's a really good idea. I should have kind of included that as well too. I would like you to provide tips, different ones in response to different questions. So we don't like keep giving the same tip again and again. Let's see, any specific guidelines? So I could kind of keep reasoning over this. That's probably close enough right now. I'm going to jump to configure. So I can kind of use the sort of conversational aspect here just to get started. And then I'll go ahead and actually configure sort of the more harder parameters. So as a person who's been working in the Microsoft ecosystem for a long time, this is what Clippy was supposed to do, is ask me some questions to get started and then let me do the full configuration. Remember, hey, it looks like you're writing a letter, then open it up and you could actually adjust the fonts and things like that. Okay, it's also asking me like, here, let's do one more. Are there any publicly accessible websites you want to use? Yeah, actually there are. In fact, I know from scrum.org and the Scrum Alliance, there's a lot of good resources there. So I'm just going to drop them in. And that's kind of coaching the agent, hey, use these sources over like what you might have already built in or just kind of randomly going out and searching the internet. Now, as I've been working, I can test this entire time. So over here, these are starter prompts it's been kind of building for me, so I could drop some of these in. So if I just click that, this is actually going to run the agent. So it's, there's no compiling. It's kind of ready to go right away because it's just essentially under the covers. It's adding these instructions I've created to a prompt and then sending them to the LLM. So here I just clicked on a starter prompt that said, how could I improve communication? And I can ask my own here too. Are there any considerations for the time of day I run my sprint? So something just totally out of the blue I know is not in my starter prompts. And it says absolutely timing your sprint activities, and it starts to tell me things I should take into consideration, like time zones and things like that. Okay, seems to be working. Let's give it a little bit more instruction. So I'm going to click here where it says configure. So again, I've got describe, that's kind of just using natural language to kind of build it out as a starting point, and then configure, that's going to bring up the actual controls and buttons and dials that I can choose from. If I want to, I can customize the icon. So if I want to click on an icon and grab a different one, I can do. This is where I can start to modify the instructions as well too. So what we're seeing here listed underneath instructions is what it came up with. I had found after some experimenting, I can get a little bit more specific with that. So let's I've got here just some general guidelines on like the tone I want it to use. Respond professionally, but keep it casual and as concise as possible. If you want to have fun, I could say, respond in a poem or include a Klingon phrase at the very end. Really up to you on how much of a nerd you are. And then this concept of skills, these are still just instructions. So it's not like a skill, like in the Amazon Alexa world, skills are actually referring to integrations or what we would call web connectors. That's not what they are in agent instructions, but I'm just giving it like specific things I'd like it to attempt and prioritize just by kind of calling these out and putting them in an organized list in the instructions. So I'm just kind of pasting those in. And if you want to get fancy, you can use Markdown or something, but it doesn't really matter. It's still just going to use the LLM and kind of reason over what we got. Okay, then I want to give it some knowledge sources. So if I go down here to the bottom, I can see there's the one that it had. And if I want to enter a couple more, I can do that. So let's grab, here, Atlassian has a source that they use. Let's go ahead and just paste that in. Great. I enter, that'll add it. And let's grab one more. So I'm just kind of copying and pasting here. Now, I'm building this one for people who don't have a full Copilot license, so I'm just using web grounding sources. But I could also click here where it says Browse, and that will take me out to my SharePoint environment. And so if I've got, like, let's say we've got a document library of known best practices for a company, I could point to that and pull it in. And if I have a graph connector, for example, we use ServiceNow. And so I could actually turn on the connector for ServiceNow, and that tells it, hey, go ahead and any questions that get asked to the agent, in addition to checking these sources, go ahead and see if there's a ServiceNow KB on it and incorporate that into your response when you come back. Now, I'm not going to do that here because I want to build an agent that anybody can use regardless of their license. We've got a couple other things I can add, like a code interpreter. Let's do one last thing. Let's adjust our starter prompts. So those are the things that showed over here. And I can see what they look like by just turning on new chat. Handling hesitation, that sounds kind of wimpy. Let's get it down to 3. Continuous improvement, backlog management, team collaboration. How can I improve my collaboration with my Scrum team and all stakeholders? Maybe I want to make an adjustment there. Perfect. And so you can see over here, it's kind of adjusting my starter prompt. I can see how that runs. Looks pretty darn good. All right, let's go ahead and create it. And probably about a minute, Michael, I'll toss it back to you.
Yeah, well, Nick, what I'm seeing from here, like, I think the value of this is, sure, you could go to Copilot and just start asking questions around Scrum, and you probably get some good information because it's
right.
But I think the power of the agent is you hear, like, Nick almost added additional training on top of what Copilot does. So he really focused it and gave it some additional links to really focus its knowledge on. So I think even if we just do web-based agents, the instructions and the persona that Nick gave it makes it that much better of a kind of agent compared to, just doing this straight in Copilot, because we'll probably get some better, more refined answers with all this additional instructions that we're tossing on top of the agent.
Yeah. That's a great summary of what I was much more concisely what I was trying to say about, taking knowledge out of your head and getting it down. Let's see. Okay. So I click go to agent and I can see my starter prompts here. Let's just try one and drop it in. That's the one we saw earlier. So I'm kind of confirm that it works for me, and I see that it does. Great. So let's go back to that Teams group chat where everybody was bugging me. I told them good luck with their new role. FYI, if you get stuck, try the agent. And then in real life, I'd probably give it, a few more instructions here, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm just Control V pasting in, or Option B, Michael, to just drop that into the group chat. And so now this is going to be available to everyone, so they can actually just go in and mention the agent and talk to it, and they'll be able to get that same kind of question back. So it'll work for the people in the group. They can just kind of go in and mention these agents as they work. Here's one that I did earlier where I dropped an agent into a group chat to help build out interview questions. People could start talking with it. And I caught something. I realized when I set it up, I had forgotten to click sharing. So you may notice when Michael was talking, I went into my hyperlink when I clicked share agent and just say, make it available to everyone in the organization. And now it shows up so all people can do it. So here's one I already kind of had baked. I have found that's a minor gotcha as I'm building these things. I kind of get moving a little quick. I got to remember to adjust the sharing settings when I drop them into chat. But that's using just the out-of-the-box agent builder, very straightforward. We mentioned briefly, we also have these for SharePoint as well too. So the one thing that's a little bit different is every SharePoint site has kind of a built-in agent experience that I can go in and grab. So if I've got like a document library in SharePoint, here, let me go up and grab this one quick. And we'll go into, this is that interview questions example that I had earlier. I'm just going to click create an agent. And that actually now builds an agent just for this document library. So it's just going to reason over just this content. And I can still copy, paste it, or go into it and edit it and adjust the instructions. So crawl, walk, run, I find this is kind of one of the easiest places to start. It's just an agent in SharePoint. That's kind of everything sits. Building an agent builder gives me a bit more control over sources. So I can add in things, but the instructions are still the same. I can go in and modify those and starter prompts. And then if I want to go deeper, that's where the professional development or the citizen developer starts to bump in. So I can click here and open this up in Copilot Studio for additional customization, or I can just start in Copilot Studio and begin building right here as well too. So I'm going to grab a couple of the links I shared on how I got started. Both of these, I'll drop them into the chat. And while I'm doing that, Michael, are you comfortable picking it up and taking us now to the next level? All right, thanks.
Thanks, Nick. I appreciate you sharing that with that. So what I'm going to show you here before we dive into the management piece, because I know that's, especially if we got a lot of IT folks, how do I manage all of this? This is super cool. But in Copilot Studio, there's a couple different things that we get in addition to what Nick showed you. And probably the biggest one that you're going to get is just ability to have management and control of the agent. So we can scale that. We can publish it and approve it as an organization agent and then send to everyone, send to certain security groups and so forth. So I'm in Copilot Studio. I've built a couple different agents. I've got an onboarding buddy, and then I've built some stuff in Copilot for Microsoft 365. So if you're unfamiliar with Copilot Studio, we can build an agent just by hitting create. The differences between building an agent here versus going to Copilot for M365, because I have a couple agents that are built directly in here. The difference is here when I'm building it inside of Copilot and for M365 within Studio, this is an agent that only works in Copilot versus these agents that I created here, Copilot Coach, which is an onboarding agent to help people understand how to use Copilot, and then my onboarding buddy. These are agents that will work within Copilot as well as kind of directly as an application directly within Teams. So that's one of the big differences between building it here versus selecting into Copilot and building it here. But I've got Polly. I built Polly as a benefits and policy agent to help my users be able to find information quickly in variety of different knowledge bases. So very similar experience that you saw from Nick, where we've got our description, we've got our instructions, and then I've got my knowledge bases. So in this one, I've got ServiceNow connector. It's a graph connector, as well as different SharePoint databases and so forth. I've disabled web browsing because I don't want this agent using the web for anything. I want it focused in only the knowledge bases that I have. So if you're building an agent with SharePoint knowledge and so forth, I recommend disabling web browsing. But the thing that I want to point out is when we publish the application, so I've already published it. I'm going to hit this availability option here. When I hit share with everyone in my org, I'm going to hit yes. What this is going to do is going to send it out to my Teams admin to approve for the organization. So I'm going to, while that's kind of thinking its way through that, I'm going to head over to Teams admin and I'm going to go to manage apps and I'm going to search for Polly. And, I've already approved Polly, so there's not going to be a whole lot I can do. But when you search for that agent, and then once it populates here, you're going to see a button over here. So next to available for everyone, there'll be a button that says publish or approve, I think it is. So this is where you can prove it, and then you can dictate who you want it to send to. So then you can have the ability to edit users or groups. I just publish for everyone, but that is that process with Copilot Studio is we get that additional control of being able to push that application as an organization and scale to individual users that would find that agent valuable. So that's Copilot Studio. Before we start getting into management controls and everything, any questions from the audience? It looks like I've got a hand raised. So
yes,
Sergio,
do you want to come off mute? Yeah. Oh, can he come off mute?
I think so.
We might have locked this thing down. Hold on. Let me allow Mike. Okay, there you go. Sorry, Sergio, we had you So you couldn't unmute. Go ahead and come off mute and ask your question.
Hi, everyone. Great presentation thus far. You answered part of my question on publishing agents. Is there a centralized hub where users can, one, navigate and find agents that have been published, and two, can an agent, I'm assuming yes, can we pin an agent within, say, Teams?
Yes and yes. So let me open up a persona here. Let's pick Judy. So that'll go to Office 365. And all right, so let's wait for agents to populate. All right, so users can pin agents as they want, so they have the ability to customize that pinning. And then we can also get, this get agents will open up that application catalog, and then they can search for agents. So anything that you publish will go to here, and then that is a searchable repository. We can actually block all of this other stuff. So if there's a lot of things in here that we don't want to, you have the ability as an admin to block all of this stuff. But the agents is where all of that will reside. So that's
You
question one.
mentioned okay.
Yep.
Oh, okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Sergio.
No, I think you're going to answer question two. I'm just getting ahead of myself.
Yeah, pinning the agent. Chuck and Nick, can you keep me honest on that one? I want to say yes. I'm just forgetting where that button is. Am I out there?
No, you're right. It's since these render inside of chat. Unless it's like, we're not going to touch this today, but you can have these show up in Copilot in like the apps like Excel. But most agents are going to show up in chat. Since it renders in chat, and we use Teams as the tool, you actually manage this UI part of the experience in the Teams admin center. So this is where I can go in and pin it so it's available. And this is also where I can go in and block it so it's not. And then finally, if I turn on approvals, like where we're going here in integrated apps, like I created an agent and shared it immediately, there's an administrative control I could use to force this to go to be published into the organization's catalog before other users can get to it as well too. So the way I did it might be a worst case of just copy and pasting the link to the agent, because I might want to manage that experience a little bit more deliberately for my user populations.
So in essence, can the agent, can an admin pin an organizational agent, say, to left side navigation like we do apps?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
And it'll appear like an app, so just kind of thinking really quick, when you do that, it essentially opens up the Copilot chat in the chat pane with the agent there. However, you can still click over on the right and get to other agents and things too. So it's not like a completely discrete UI experience. There is a way in Copilot Studio to publish an agent to a web page. So if I wanted to put like a wrapper around it to make it appear like a separate web app, I can certainly do that. So just keep that in mind too. It'll get them to it quickly, but you should still train the users on how to navigate Teams chat. I used to work help desk, so
Nick,
maybe
are you thinking the pinning the agent as an application within Teams?
Yes.
Okay, I see where you're going with that.
Thank you. So, Gina dropped it in. Thank you, Gina. Thank you. Yes. So I was stumbling through that.
Awesome. So Sergio, I see where that's coming from. So if you're building the agent in Copilot Studio, not under M365, the what I showed you, but that other area outside of the M365, that becomes an agent as well as an application in Teams. And then through your setup policies, you can add that agent, you can pin that to Teams. So that's one way to do it in Teams to make it accessible. So like that's popular where we, pin Copilot at the top and so forth. So I'm kind of showing you everything. These are all the things that I have set up as an admin that are pinned to my users' Teams. Is your question, can we pin it in the Copilot web UI? So it shows up as those agents at the top, right?
Pin them. Yes, and more in particular to the left side, like we do pin some apps to the left navigation pane. But yes.
Okay, that one I'm going to follow up with you on. I know we can make it available, but pin it in, I'm not sure. If anyone's got some documentation, but if anything, I'll have that as an action item.
That would be really nice if that was a built-in feature.
Good. Any other questions? Good question, Sergio. Appreciate it. Thanks for coming on muting. Any other questions from everybody?
I don't see anything else that hasn't been answered. I'll call out Corey had a really good one really quick, just asking like, hey, if you're, Nick, you show that example with a graph connector. Does that mean a non-licensed Copilot user can't get to it? And the answer is yes. So if I have the Copilot license, I can get to anything in the graph or things that are connected to the graph via a graph connector. If I have a user that doesn't have the full Copilot license, say I've got a call center where they've just got the Microsoft 365 license, then I could do what Gina was referring to. I can turn on pay-as-you-go billing, which charges a few cents. I'm oversimplifying each time the agent gets used for those people that don't have the full Copilot license. So there's a bit of an algebraic question here as you're thinking strategy is if at some point I'm going to use the agent so much, I'm going to go over the $30 per user per month at retail for the full Copilot license, that might be easier. But we wanted to have a way where people that are just using the LLM-based chat experience could still get to agents in specific roles and scenarios and have that full experience. So I like to say every user needs a Copilot and every process needs an agent. And so that's how we enable agentifying those processes for people that don't yet have the full license. Great question, Corey. Thank you for asking that. Okay, I'll keep moderating chat if you want to keep going.
Cool. All right, we're going to go on to the how do I manage all of this stuff side of things. So I'm going to be using a couple different screens here because I've got different personas have different privileges. So right now we're going to look at how do I actually manage agents. So approving them, blocking them, manage some of those shared agents. And when I say shared agents, those are the agents that you saw Nick build in AI Builder. So within Microsoft Teams admin, actually, I'm going to backtrack before I go directly into the manage that. I think it's actually important to pull out. So point out Copilot. So in MS admin, you've got Copilot control system. That's something that we announced at Ignite. So the Copilot control system is kind of like that hub for all of the different Copilot management things. So we've got overview, health, and discover. The things I want to point out here is go directly to settings. So when you're first deploying Copilot, I recommend going through some of these things. Some of these are going to be links that go out to another admin center. But Copilot diagnostics. So in the last session, we had a couple users that had some questions around feedback. So they were concerned with if a user submits feedback, does the prompt go to Microsoft, and they were worried about PHI and so forth. So we can enable or disable feedback directly as a cloud policy. So I can go into my cloud policy and I can search for feedback and disable that. So that's one way to do that. That may not be something you want to do since that's kind of applies to a tenant wide unless you're building policies to specific security groups. But we can also submit feedback directly for an end user. So let's say we've disabled feedback for that organization, but the user submits a ticket and says, I've got some feedback, this isn't working. We can go to the MS Admin Center and hit start here at the bottom. Let's blow this up so it might be easier to see. And I can hit start, and then I can search for that user and search for the Copilot conversations and submit that directly to Microsoft as well. So we can do that as an admin as another way of submitting feedback. We've got Copilot image generation. This allows us to essentially just turn image generation on or off. We've got Copilot in Bing and Edge and Windows. So this is going to take us out to another area, but you can actually manage those. I've got a link in here that I'm going to throw in after the fact that'll give you some documentation on how to manage all of those different areas of the M365 apps. The Copilot pay as you go. So we can, I think that's. There we go. We can set that up directly through here. So you can do that now through Copilot in the MS Admin Center. That's previously you had to do that on the Power Platform, but as long as you've got your Azure subscription set up in some way, that'll populate. If you don't have that set up, you'll have to go to Azure Admin Center and set that up, and then everything will be available to you. So, but if you want to utilize billing, so this is for those Copilot chat users to be able to utilize things from your graph, so from the Microsoft Graph, their third-party connector. So if you're building agents that have some of those graph or connectors that are part of that agent and are not completely web-based, Copilot chat users can use them, but it is a metered connection, so we need to set up pay-as-you-go billing first. Pinning Copilot chat. This allows us, if you want to make that, I recommend doing this just because it puts Copilot front and center, so Copilot's accessible in all the different areas that they use their tools in. But take a look at this, go through some of these. This is kind of just general administration for Microsoft Copilot. So any questions that you're seeing here that we can help with? Ooh, I'll highlight web search for M365 Copilot. This you'll have to go but directly to the cloud policy, but I have customers have had these questions. So I search for feedback. I'm in cloud policy. I'm just going to search for Copilot. And then this allows us we've got pin Copilot, so we can enable that or disable that, allowing web search in Copilot. So we're going to enable that, and you've got a different selections if we want to allow web search or not. A lot of organizations have different policies and different security settings. So if that's important to you, that is something that is available for you to configure on if web search is allowed or not. All right.
And just one comment. This is an hour, so we can't go deep into everything.
Oh, yeah, we're at 10:56.
Right now is I know, right?
Oh my!
It's having so much fun. It goes so fast. These are architectural considerations that my agent team, my citizen developer, solution developer team, should be taking in consideration if we're building an agent that's going to be used broadly in the organization. So for what I just showed with the SharePoint thing, that's that's easy. Like an information worker can use it. But now we're talking about, okay, I'm going to build a bespoke agent for a specific process and role that has a license assigned. And I used the example earlier of a call center or a receptionist or a physician that uses Epic and nothing else in Microsoft 365. So when I do that, as I'm building the agents, one of the things I will do is just track how many responses are needed back and forth each time a user uses that to get to the answer that they want. And we actually charge based on those responses. AI has a very high compute load. It's running stuff through GPUs and neural processors in the back end. So this is all done in real time. And that's why Microsoft and all the other vendors tend to have a metered billing option in addition to kind of our broader license. So Gina gave the example of, hey, think about where you're going to publish it. That'll have an impact on how Microsoft considers it and how it's charged, because you might be able to wrap it underneath the existing Teams license that's kind of alongside of Microsoft 365 and include it there. So I'm going to drop a couple of links. This is an area that's evolving. Internally at Microsoft, our engineering team just released a couple of cost calculators for us. So if you reach out to your Microsoft representative, they can help with this conversation. And I'm going to drop some links in as well too. It's not a terrible thing. So when you build these things out, a really complicated agent might have, say, 50 responses in a session and take, I'm making this up, 75 cents to run, each time a user interacts with it, over the course of like 20 minutes. So that's not terrible. It's like, $3 an hour to get this knowledge. So I'm not trying to scare you away from it, but as you think about, okay, it's going to be used by 100 people on a monthly basis, we do want to make that calculation. The example I gave earlier, at some point, it might be better to just get the full Copilot license, and or it might be better to host it someplace. So often like VPs of sales love the idea of their teams having a special bespoke portal, right? We're always one portal away from Nirvana in like SharePoint. And so they'll be like, hey, let's put this thing on a web page so people don't have to make 2 clicks to get to it. And we might want to say, we could do that, but if we just have them open in Teams, it's going to be a lot easier to do. So reach out to your Microsoft rep as you go through that. This is all still like in the churn rate, we're still a couple of years into this. So we're, the tools to kind of do this analysis are evolving. Microsoft.com/Copilot is the best place to get started as you're going through that. Okay, so off my soapbox. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah. When our last minute here, managing agents, very simple process. Settings, integrated apps, hit available apps, and hit the settings over here. This all the way down here allows us, the following users, to access Copilot Agents. So if you want, especially if you're piloting things, you can determine if who gets agents. So we can do that at a global level directly in here. And then we can also go to any of these agents and block them, as well as the shared agents. The last thing I'll show you here is any of those agents that like Nick built, an AI agent builder. All of these right now, we can either block them or make them available. So you have some of those controls for those agents that they're building directly within Copilot. We can block or make those available. But those are the 2 big settings I would say you look at when you're in integrated apps. We can allow agents for everyone or certain ones, and then we can also block or make available those AI agent builders. But that's all I got for now. Watch out for our next one.